Of what in the ads is going on. I am Amanda Robinson. I am the digital gal, and let me see if I can get my little buddy to come up. Come on, up. Let me see. It's hard to see him with this green screen. The small dog wanted to come for a quick visit. So today, and he's going underneath the green screen that you can't even see, of course. So today, hi, we are talking cookies, pixels, privacy, and data. And that's why I felt it was super appropriate to have the all too lovely Matrix background today. If you are tuning in live, make sure you say hello. If you are catching this on the replay, of course, that super secret keyword that you know and love is still outstanding. So if you want to run over to the Digital Gal's Facebook page, facebook.com/thedigitalgal, you can type in the word outstanding. And I have just restocked with some brand new stickers in the Digital Gal store. So I now have, let's see if this will show with this. Yeah, oh yeah, it is showing. So we've got some brand new holographics here. So if you head on over to thedigitalgal.com, facebook.com/thedigitalgal, and type in the word outstanding on any of the posts on my Facebook page, then you'll have a chat with my BF, my bot friend, and I will send you a lovely pack of stickers, because who doesn't love stickers? Seriously. And who doesn't love snail mail? Seriously. All right, so today we're going to be talking privacy, and we're going to be talking data, and we're going to be talking regulations, and we're going to be talking pixels, and what the heck does all of it mean, and what is the difference between all of this? So I do have some clips from last week's show, courtesy of Stephanie Liu. She was the one that grabbed those and chopped them up for me, showing me Descript. So I was asking her, what's the difference between Otter.ai and Descript? So quick side tangent before we get into today's topic. So I've been using Otter.ai as my transcription tool. So I have it connected to my Zoom. So when I do a client meeting on Zoom, what happens is that information is automatically being recorded with Otter.ai and automatically transcribed in the background. So that by the time that Zoom meeting is done, as soon as I hit finish when I'm done recording that Zoom meeting, it automatically transcribes everything for me, and then I can go back through that transcription. It has the audio embedded in it as well. So you can literally scan or search for a word and go right to that word or that whatever topic it was that you were talking about in that meeting, and it'll skip right down to it, and you can hit play and you can replay that little section. It's so handy. So I've been using Otter.ai for transcribing. I think it's roughly $9.99 a month, and I get enough minutes to do my Zoom meetings. But with that, it doesn't have all the features that I've been seeing all of my friends using, which is Descript. So I know Stephanie's been using Descript and talking a lot about it for content repurposing. So today we did a quick Zoom and we jumped in and we were screen sharing, and she showed me all the cool things that you can be doing with Descript, and oh my gosh, mind is blown. Steve is here. Steve, love it. Use it for my show notes for the podcast. Great tool. And is that for Otter.ai? It's been so handy for me. So I actually take, when my client calls are done, I actually take that call and I share it with the client or share it with whomever I was having that conversation with. So it's been a really handy tool. Oh, and the difference is back in the day, I used to use rev.com for all my captions. So if I was going to caption a video or try and get a transcript, I would use rev.com. But it's expensive. When you have an hour-long conversation, hour-long meeting with somebody and trying to get that transcripted, didn't make a lot of sense. And Steve is saying, yeah, Otter.ai. So Stephanie introduced me to Descript, Descript. I think I said that right. And it blew my mind with what you can do as far as auto captioning, as far as chopping up little bits of information. Now, if you don't know, Stephanie has a show called Digital Confetti, where she shows you how to repurpose all of your content, specifically video content. So anyhow, we dove in. So she ran a test on some of my content from last week, and it actually appropriately works perfectly with today's show. So I've got two clips for you. Those are courtesy of Stephanie Liu. And those are going to be covering off a nice little 2-minute explanation on what the heck is going on with iOS 14. So Apple rolling out their iOS 14 update and what that's doing to your Facebook ads as far as tracking, visibility, privacy. And again, today's conversation, we're talking privacy, cookies, pixels, tracking, all of this matrixy type stuff. So I'm going to roll that just to give a quick explanation. And then I have another clip that is explaining pixels and how if you don't have a pixel on your site prior to today, well, it's going to be a bit more of an uphill battle for you. So I've got those two clips to play. And then we're going to dig into the difference between cookies versus pixels. What are they doing? And how does that play in with current laws? And how do we manage all of that data? So that's what we're going to go into. This show here is sponsored by Restream. Restream is what I'm using right now to be able to multi-stream into multiple locations. So if you are seeing me over on Facebook, hi. If you're seeing me over on YouTube, hey. If you're seeing me in different Facebook groups, it's all Restream. So if you want to check out Restream, get a free account and play around with multi-streaming yourself, you can go to thedigitalgal.com/Restream, sign yourself up for a free account, get in there, try it out, play around with it, and let me know what you think. In today's show, I'm using Ecamm to record the video, but it's being broadcast out with Restream. In tomorrow's show, I've got 2 live shows. Tomorrow's show, the video marketing show, that's inside Restream's studio. So Restream has their own studio, so user-friendly, beautiful, chef's kiss. And if you're new to live streaming, you'll definitely want to check it out because it makes streaming so easy. You can make beautiful shows, all sorts of overlays, show titles, all sorts of things. You definitely want to check it out. All right, so I'm going to roll clip on one of these. Which one am I going to start with? I think I'm going to start with the explanation on Apple's iOS 14 because this is what is sparking this whole conversation. Last week I went quite in depth with it, and I know there are still so many unanswered questions right now on what the heck it means with iOS rolling out some new privacy with their app tracking transparency, and how that's actually impacting our visibility with our Facebook ads and our ad costs and what we can track, what we can't track. It's our wild west days of having data at our fingertips is kind of slowly going away. And I'm going to explain that with this little 2-minute clip. So let me pull this up here. And I think this will be the one. iOS 14 rolls out and people are opting out of allowing Facebook to track them. It's not cutting the cord entirely. It's not just making that person completely invisible to Facebook. But essentially, instead of, hey, Facebook, you can track an infinite number of actions and activities from that user, Apple is basically being like, no, we'll just let you know if the traffic came here. We'll let you know one thing. We won't let you know all the things. We'll just report back on one thing. And that one thing has to be whatever you as the advertiser have identified as the most important thing to you. So is the most important thing a page view? Is the most important thing a purchase? So you can rank those things, those events that happen on your site in order of importance. And we're allowed to track 8 of those events. And we can rank them in order of importance. And a trickle of that information will come back into Facebook from an iOS device. This is a massive, massive chunk of advertising, of ads. So in this example, this graphic that you're seeing here, what's happening is basically Apple is implementing the app tracking transparency little notification warning. So it's bringing it up front and personal to users so that they're going to see it right away and have the option to opt out of allowing these apps to track. If people opt out, then that traffic that's hitting the website, even though it has a Facebook pixel on it, Facebook won't be able to report 100% of that data back into Facebook. So it's not coming all the way back. It's not informing your audiences. It's not informing those conversions for your reporting. We're going to be facing a delay in reporting. And now Facebook is also saying that some of that reporting is going to be based on statistical modeling. What? Statistical. All right, so that was a little snippet from last week's show, and that was actually a little piece that I had presented at the Midwest Digital Marketing Conference at MDMC. So to recap, I'm not sure how well the audio came through on that, but to recap essentially, now that iOS has app tracking transparency, rolling out across a whole bunch of iOS devices, I'm using SnapCam right now. By the way, I'm spewing all the technology I'm using. I'm using Ecamm, we're using Restream, I'm using SnapCam, talking about Otter.ai, talking about Descript. Now we're talking about pixels and cookies and tracking and app tracking transparency. Sorry, if this episode is a little heavy on the tech, I'm going to help break it down a little bit for you. So Apple, they now have for certain apps that are tracking you, a little window pops up and is like, bloop, bloop. Hey, do you want to continue letting this app track you? And you can be like, yes, go ahead. Or you can be like, no, stop tracking me. And if you say, no, stop tracking me, that doesn't mean you're going to see less ads from platforms like Facebook. That just means you're not sending your own personal information, your targeted, your behavioral data. You're not sending that back to the advertising platform, so they can't be as targeted and as creative with the advertising that's being served to you. So I, as an individual, might be starting to see wedding ads or engagement ads or baby ads. I'm like, I'm not really interested in any of those things. And I just want to give a giant shout out to Lisa, who is here. Happy Wednesday. Received your stickers today. Thank you so much. If you are just tuning in right now and you want to get your hands on some of these lovely stickers, I have a brand spanking new holographic digital gal edition that has now come in. Whoop, there we go. So you can get your hands on those by heading over to my Facebook page, thedigitalgal.com/ wait, I always get that backwards as I say it. Facebook.com/thedigitalgal. Comment outstanding on any of the posts there and have a chat with my BF, my bot friend, and enter in your information, your data. This is actually a great segue. Give me your data and I will give you stickers. I'm basically giving people stickers in exchange for data. It's a little bit more than that. I mean, it's more of a personal touch. I like to put things in people's hands in real life, not just through a computer screen. So that's why I like that. But yes, I am collecting your email address. I am collecting your mailing address. What am I doing with that? I'm retargeting you with ads. Not necessarily. All right. So Apple's doing their cool little thing. Now, what are we talking about there? When we're talking about that whole Apple iOS tracking pixels, it's using a pixel. So let's talk about privacy. Let's talk about pixels and privacy and what all of that means. I have another video here teed up for you. Actually, I'm going to start with that one. Let me pull back here. And this one is going to explain pixels. It's 3 minutes long. It's going to talk about pixels and how a pixel is tracking you, essentially. And then we're going to flip back in here and talk about cookies. Okay? All right. Let's do this. I'm going back here. When iOS 14 rolls out and people are... What happens if the events were not set up, added before iOS 14 changes? What that means, that's a great question. Okay, let's hypothetically pretend that you didn't have a pixel running on your page at all. And then with all of this, and you're learning more about this, and you're like, oh man, I really should have a pixel on my page. You go ahead and put it on there. That data is not retroactive. It doesn't look back into the past and go, oh, in the last several months, you've had thousands of website visitors. Let's add them onto your audiences of people that you can retarget. Nope. It starts tracking data as of the day it's installed. So the day you put your pixel on your site, that's the day it starts collecting information. And then it collects that and we move forward. There are a lot of businesses, like now that iOS 14, the updates are rolling out, that doesn't mean immediately we are losing all access to all of our audiences that we've built up and been tracking over time. No, it means that going forward, we may lose visibility to those secondary hits the next time that they're on our site, the next time they make a purchase, the next time they do take those activities, or when new people come by and do those activities. We're going to be losing visibility to those actions now moving forward. But your website visitor audiences, you can track those people and retarget those people for up to 180 days, which is 6 months. So as of today, this is literally the line has been drawn in the sand this week. As iOS 14 is rolling out, there's the time pre-iOS 14 and time post-iOS 14. But up until starting today, we've kicked off a 6-month timer, and we can now still retarget our website visitors 6 months out from now. And for people who have engaged with our page or watched our videos, we have 365 days. So we have a whole year, a year from today, of being able to still track. And even those, actually, that's a moot point, because people who engage with your page and people who viewed videos, those are all taking place on Facebook. So that's on Facebook activity. That's fair game. That is not going away. That is not changing. We can still audience build. We can still optimize. We can do all sorts of things with that data and that information. It's the off Facebook activity where we will be more limited. And again, website visitors, that's an off Facebook activity. Conversions, that's an off Facebook activity. We still have 6 months worth of retargeting on people who have taken that action. But if you're just installing your pixel today and you haven't been tracking all of that data over time, then yes, you've got a steep climb ahead of you compared to your competitors who have already been tracking that information. Okay. So this is good. This is a good little recap. So we've talked about iOS 14 and the updates and what that means for app tracking transparency and how that's not quite sending all the data back to Facebook for the purpose of advertisers like me trying to advertise to you. And then we've talked about pixels and how pixels are helping track information that takes place off of Facebook, so out in the wild, wild web, and how those actions and behaviors and activities can then be reported back to Facebook for advertisers like me to be able to advertise to you. So that chain link is getting a little bit broken when it comes to the updates that Apple just rolled out with their new iOS 14 updates, iOS 14.5 to be exact. So what does this mean for you, for tracking, for transparency, for privacy, for cookies and data? Let's make some sense of all of this. Okay, so let's talk. And I hope this background isn't too annoying. Let's try this. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. A little more cozy, a little less Matrix. And giant shout out to JP who is tuning in. Small Dog for Prime Minister couldn't do any worse. JP's a huge Small Dog fan. Small Dog made a cameo appearance right at the very beginning, and now he's off trying to find treats and snacks elsewhere. So cookies versus pixels. What's the difference? What are they doing? All right. When we have cookies and when we have pixels, it's tiny little packets of information. Well, a cookie is a packet of information. It's not the nice snack. It's not the tasty treat. It's a tiny packet of information. The difference between a cookie and a pixel is that the cookie is storing information on your browser. So storing information on your machine. So when you go to a certain website, that website is you are collecting that website is, no, you're, the brain's not computing. You pick up a cookie. How many cookies are in your jar? That's essentially what's going on. As you visit, and Annette is here for the cookies. Thank God, Annette, because I think I need your help at this point. So as you go around to all these different websites, you're collecting little cookies, kind of like little snacks, and you're just hanging on to them. And the preferences of the kind of cookie that you're getting. Is it a chocolate cookie? Is it a vanilla cookie? Is it a cream-filled cookie? Whatever. Is it a crunchy cookie? Is it a soft cookie? Do you have chocolate chips in it? What are your preferences? So based on certain preferences or certain items you're looking at or certain items you're adding to cart, that information is getting collected and it's getting stored on your machine in a little tiny packet, which is a little cookie. So that the next time you go back to that website, it's easy for that site just to talk to that cookie and recall that information, and you can pick up where you left off. It helps sites load a lot faster. It helps report that information back to the website so that from a performance perspective, it can operate a lot better for you. So that's one area of data. So if you're browsing all these different sites, imagine you have a cookie jar and you're collecting all these cookies in it, all these little packets of information about you and about your browsing habits. Those are getting collected. Now, occasionally, your cookie jar gets a little bit full and can slow down your machine. So sometimes you need to go into your browser and clear your cookies. And you'll notice when you go to clear your cookies, and then you go back to certain websites that you've always gone to, when you go to that site, normally you're automatically logged in. But after you went and cleared your cookies, you can no longer, or you have to re-log in again. It's like you've never been to that site before. That's because that site forgets everything about you and it's starting fresh. So cookies are beneficial, but they are also storing a heck of a lot of data. So for example, I was reading an article prior to this about someone who did, I think it was someone with the New York Times. Don't quote me, I could be wrong. They did a test where they ran for a week using Chrome's browser, where Chrome basically is like cookie heaven. There's just cookies for everybody. And in the week of browsing, picked up over 11,000 cookies. Whereas you can use other browsers like Firefox, and Firefox is privacy first. Privacy first, cookies last. Cookies in the back. No cookies for you. So different browsers allow different volumes of cookies. And doesn't say that Firefox doesn't allow cookies at all, but it's privacy first, and you can still access sites like Google, and you can still end up picking up some cookies, but it's not as cookie friendly. So you can clear your cookies at any time. It sounds, now all I want is cookies. So that's being stored on your machine. Now, you'll notice with certain regulations like GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation in the United Kingdom, and there's CASL, the Canadian Anti-Spam Legislation. There is also CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act. All of these are different examples of regulations, legislations, rules that are country or regional specific that essentially are saying, hey, if you're going to be putting a cookie in somebody's jar, you got to let them know. And you got to give them the ability to say, yes, I want the cookie, or no, I don't. And if they say, no, I don't want the cookie, actually forget I was even here, I don't even like cookies, then you have to give that person the ability to have that permission, or give you that permission, basically to empty the cookie jar. So with that, you'll notice, especially now in the last 2018, 19, 20, 21, in the last 3 years, you'll notice that a lot of websites you go to will have a little disclaimer on the site that says, this site uses cookies. To continue using the site, please accept, please acknowledge. And you're clicking that button of like, okay, that's accepting the cookie into your cookie jar. I don't know how I come up with these things. This is kind of like the running with an analogy on the fly. So that's essentially cookies. It is putting something on your machine, tiny little packet of information. So now let's talk about pixels. Pixels operate similar to cookies in that they are still passing data back to a third-party source. So we'll use Facebook as the example, and a Facebook pixel. A pixel is a tiny little snippet of code. Think of it, I'll go back to like the Matrix style here. Think of it like this. It's like a tiny, it's not like this. This is like Matrix style, tons and tons and tons of lines of code everywhere. Pixel isn't like that. A pixel, imagine a pixel just being like a tiny little paragraph of information, literally little paragraph. And that little paragraph of text with your header tags and your closing tags, that gets put into the header of your website. So if you go to www.thedigitalgal.com, the very first thing that loads is my header. So the top of the website that has all my navigation, my home, about me, contact us, all of that, that's in the header. So if you navigate to any of the pages on my website, that always stays at the top. So if you're on the blog page, or if you're on the About Amanda or the Contact Us, you can always still navigate from that top header. That's what the header is. So you take that little tiny paragraph of code, and behind the scenes of your website, you go and drop that little pixel of code into the header of your site, so that every visitor that comes to that site, in the background, that little snippet of code is there, and it's tracking information about the user, about the pages that they're viewing, about what their browsing habits are, if they are clicking add to cart, abandon cart, a purchase, a checkout, subscribe, whatever activities and actions happen on your website that pixel is calibrated to collect information on. It's taking that information and it's basically watching you, and then it's taking that and it's sending that information back to Facebook or back to the source platform. There are pixels out there for Twitter, there's pixels for LinkedIn, there's pixels for Facebook, there's pixels for Google remarketing. There's all sorts of different little paragraphs of code that you can have in the header of a website, and that sends user data back off to all these platforms so they can track you. Now, the difference between a cookie versus a pixel is that the cookie is in your cookie jar. It's living on your machine for easy recall the next time you go back to that site. Whereas a pixel isn't living on your machine. That's completely happening in a complete virtual space. But whether it's a cookie or whether it's a pixel, it involves information about you and about your browsing habits and about the sites and information that you are consuming. Now, if you wanted to browse something and not have things track you, you can use a browser. For example, you can use Chrome in incognito mode. And Chrome in incognito mode is not going to store those cookies. Now, I actually don't know about pixels, if that sends pixel data back. I'm going to have to check on that. I am by no means an expert in this. I just have limited knowledge because I'm an advertiser and because I'm on the other end. Most consumers right now, when they're getting that notification from Facebook of, do you want to opt out of tracking or do you want to let Facebook track you? Everybody is like smashing that opt out button. Like, no, let me out. Stop tracking me. No, big brother. I don't want this. And I'm on the other end of that going, oh, another one bites the dust. Another one driving up the cost of my advertising. Another one that I can't reach with targeted ads that are meant for that person, that are relevant, versus now that person that they've opted out, I'm like, ooh, I don't want to be living in your newsfeed in 6 months. So as I did explain in that recap video that you just saw earlier, it's not an immediate cutting of the cord. So now that some people are opting out and choosing not to be tracked in that way, they want increased privacy. They don't want to be tracked on every single app they touch in every single way. There's too much information out there. We are data blind. We have no clue how much data is out there on us and how much data happens with every single keystroke, every single site we go to. I'm not saying this to scare you. It's just the fabric of our current economy. That's the plain truth. So by us trying to cut ourselves out of that fabric of our current economy and to regain some control over privacy, it's not going to have an immediate effect. It's going to take some time. So advertisers like me, if you had those cookies on your site, or picked up a cookie from being on my site, or if you picked up a tracking pixel, fired a tracking pixel from browsing my site and that information's gone back to Facebook, I still have that information right now. Now, from an advertising perspective, I can only use that information for up to 6 months. So of those off Facebook activities that were happening, that I can't see inside Facebook's environment, if I sent traffic off of Facebook and onto my website, and then I want to advertise to you based on that, I have up to 6 months, 180 days, that I can retarget you with ads. So now that the plug is getting pulled with privacy and people opting out, doesn't mean I don't still have that data on you if you went to my website. It just means new users who are going there who have opted out, I won't have the same visibility to. So we're not going to see an immediate impact, but 6 months from now, we might see a sharp decrease in our audience sizes with the multitude of people who are opting out of tracking from their apps. We might see a big, sharp drop off in what's happening as far as the information that advertisers have. So that's something to be cognizant of. So with that, that's kind of a little bit of a look at data tracking, so let's back this up. We have cookies, which you are stored on your machine. You pick them up. Most websites have a little banner or a little notification saying, hey, we use cookies on the site. You cool with that? And when you click yes, you're taking that cookie and putting it in your hypothetical cookie jar in your browser, your web browser. You can empty cookies. You can clean out your cookies and clear all browsing history, and that will get rid of them, and that resets you kind of back to zero. And then every time you visit a site, it kind of starts fresh again. And there are different types of cookies, like authentication cookies, and that's when you've logged into somewhere and you stay logged in. For example, Facebook, when you go to facebook.com on your web browser and you sign in, you're signed in on that device. Now, unless you actually go and click sign out, or Facebook kicks you out for whatever reason, which has happened to me a million times, but unless you sign out, you are always signed in, and you are authenticated because of cookies. So if you clear all your cookies, you trash them all out, then you lose that authentication. You have to re-authenticate. You have to re-log in again. And it's while you are logged in, even if you close your browser and open it again at a later date and then keep browsing, that's how sites like Facebook, when you trigger that pixel that's living on these different websites from different advertisers, you're still logged into Facebook. Facebook can see you as being logged in while you're on that other third-party website, and that information gets translated back. So again, the magnitude of why this is important to understand cookies, pixels, tracking, is because Apple taking a big move, like putting the choice to opt out of tracking front and center on everybody's phones. The majority of people are opting out, will be opting out, and that means on a large scale, Apple represents about 50% of the mobile browsing for ads from an ads perspective. That 90%, 90% is mobile ad traffic. Of that 90% of traffic, half of that is an Apple device. So that's billions and billions of actual ad impressions that take place on iOS devices that in the future may no longer be able to be quite as hyper-targeted, and our audience sizes will take a little bit of a hit. Lots and lots and lots to unpack in there. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder, but that's sort of the basic understanding. Cookies in your cookie jar stored on your machine in your browser. Depending on what browser you use, some browsers allow more cookies to be tracked, like Chrome is the largest offender. Firefox is known to be the best privacy browser with your safety in mind. And then we have pixels, and all sorts of websites can have all sorts of different pixels of information, just a tiny little paragraph of code that sends information back to the owner of that pixel, such as Facebook or LinkedIn or Google, etc. So with the tracking and the data, it's been the wild, wild west. Advertisers have been able to track pretty much everything on you. Like everything. It's shocking how much advertisers can track. So with that, there's just a global movement between all of the different regulations that have been in the works. I mean, Canadian anti-spam legislation, I think that rolled out in like 2012. GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, that was 2018. And then the California Consumer Privacy Act, I'm not quite sure when that rolled out, but it was after GDPR. So within the last 3 years or so, they've become the strictest state as far as data and privacy goes in all of the US, but they also represent a massive portion of the US population. So you can see, and globally, there are other countries that have equivalent data protections to GDPR. GDPR has to be like, I think they're the gold standard of the tightest regulations, and quite quickly, many countries will be following suit and or catching up and updating their existing ones. So the days of us having free access to a whole bunch of data for the purposes of advertising, that is shifting. And that's slowly going to be going away. Consumers are so undereducated on what we can track, and they're so undereducated on how much power they do have to pick and choose what tracking is out there. So that's a bit of a roundabout explanation on cookies and pixels and tracking and privacy, and the little bit of a battle and power struggle that's going on out there between Apple mixed with these overarching regulations, mixed with advertisers like Facebook who still want their piece of that pie. So it's real time. It's a real time conversation. It will keep playing out. I'm sure we're going to have more of these conversations where we break down all the little bits and pieces, but I feel like this part of the conversation, if you don't understand those fundamentals of a cookie, a pixel, and where that information is going, where it's being stored, how it's being translated back to the advertisers, if you're missing that piece of this puzzle of the conversation, then app tracking, transparency, privacy, all of that is going to be very confusing. So that's why I wanted to do this little segment here. If you want to get deeper into advertising and understanding how all this is actually impacting your Facebook ads or what to do with regards to your Facebook advertising, then we currently have the 4-week Facebook Ads Bootcamp in session right now. It just kicked off yesterday, so we're in week 1. So if you want to join that 4-week Facebook Ads Bootcamp, you can head over to swiftkickintheads.com and you can sign yourself up. And a really cool feature is brand spanking new. I'm excited. Members are currently getting their brand spanking new Digital Gal Yeti tumblers with Swift Kick in the Ads. Very excited about these. So if you are a current member of Swift Kick in the Ads, keep your eyes peeled. These are dropping in the mail. If you want to join us as a brand new member, jump in on this month's 4-week Facebook Ads Bootcamp and learn how to do your own Facebook ads for yourself from the ground up. Now is definitely the time you're going to want to do it. I rerun this bootcamp live multiple times a year. I've got it kind of down to a science now, running it 4 times a year, and I rerun it. Once you're in it, you're in it. If you're in the bootcamp, you're in the bootcamp for life. Not the memberships with Kicking the Ads. That one, even if you cancel out of that membership at any point, you still get the bootcamp for free for the rest of time. The reason being is if you are paying me to learn Facebook ads, I want to make sure that you have access to the most up-to-date information always. And that's why I rerun that program live, because then you get to see all of the changes and updates in real time. And this particular run of the bootcamp is quite different than I'd say than the previous 3 or 4 runs. So if you are already a member, if you're already in there and you haven't taken the fundamental training, I highly recommend it because everything, this whole conversation we've been having about Apple, iOS 14, how it's impacting ads, we're going through step by step on the areas of where it's impacting you. So week 1, we talked, the one that we just did, the replay is immediately available. That was how to create ads using Ads Manager, going beyond the boost. And then week 2, which is this coming Tuesday, we're talking all about audiences and targeting. And unfortunately, one of the targeting tools that I like to showcase in that particular training is a Facebook tool that is going away. Facebook is taking it away. I am devastated because it was an amazing tool for being able to do audience research. So that's going to be going away, and that's going to be a different, that the training on that next week is going to be tailored to accommodate that. So that's another example of why having access to this bootcamp ongoing is very helpful. Week 3, budgets and strategy. I guarantee you, thanks to this iOS 14 update, the strategy conversation is going to be reshaped and it's going to change a little bit because not all advertisers need to worry about these pixel changes. Not all advertisers have, pixeled funnels that they're tracking every single interaction and activity, and it might not pertain to you now, but it may pertain to you in the future. So the strategy is definitely changing. And then week 4, we go into reporting and optimizing. And let me tell you, reporting, my heart, it hurts. Reporting is a hot mess, and we are losing a lot of visibility to certain bits of data. So the reporting conversation has changed. So if you're not already a member of the bootcamp, you are going to want to head over to swiftkickandtheads.com, sign yourself up. We just started this past week, so we're in the current four-week run, and I'm really excited to be able to break down all of the Apple iOS 14 craziness into plain language terms, so business owners and entrepreneurs can actually understand: does it matter to me? How do I implement? What changes do I need to take? What do I need to do? So if you want to join us over there, I highly, highly recommend it. All right, and again, a giant shout out to our show sponsor, Restream. Restream is behind, they are the magicians behind how I am able to broadcast this right now in multiple locations, multiple different Facebook groups, on YouTube, all at the same time. So simple. It takes next to no setup. I go into restream.io and I set up my broadcast. So I just choose what date I want to go live. I put in a title, I put in a description, and I put in a thumbnail, and then I pick the date, and then I switch on a slider for all the different channels that I want to go live to at the same time. And then I schedule it, and then when the date comes, I broadcast. It's so simple. So if you want to check out Restream, head on over to thedigitalgal.com/Restream. Go and sign up for a free account. Go and play with it. Go and check it out. It's fun. Okay, everybody. That's a wrap. I am Amanda Robinson. I am the Digital Gal. Oh, let me throw back on the little matrix. There we go. My little matrix filter. I am Amanda Robinson. I am the Digital Gal. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of What in the Ads is Going On. I am back again next week for this show, and I'm also back online with the video marketing show taking place tomorrow. So if you have the opportunity to pop in and join me tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific, also on Facebook and on Restream and on YouTube and everywhere, definitely want to tune into that. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night. Ciao.